Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. I am so honored that I get to interview today's guest. I have been such a fan of her expertise, of her career. She is actually one of the reasons that I was inspired to start doing the work that I'm doing. I have learned from her work to be able to do what I am doing now as a professional. So I am going to have her introduce herself because I can't even do it justice. And I'm like fawning over here because I'm so excited to be able to do this interview.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. And I'm so happy that if I gave you even anything, one thing that helps you to help your patients more effectively, easier, then that's just such a win. Like, I think the more that we collaborate, we just keep extending our knowledge in ways that allows all of us to just serve women more powerfully, more effectively, communicate better, help them understand. Like, we can talk ad nauseum about this. So who am I? I'm Kirsten Karchmer, and I was one of the first board-certified reproductive acupuncturists in North America. I spent 20 years in 3 clinics in Texas, helping over 10,000 women. And in 2016, I read a study that said less than 3% of women, can afford fertility treatments. 3%. That means 97% of women and couples who want to have families don't have access to resources to help them if they're struggling. And I felt kind of sick when I read that. And I felt ashamed, to be honest, because while I was very proud of all the women that I did help, I was like, 10,000 is nothing.
Yeah.
If only 97% of them, only 3% of them could afford to even go to acupuncture. It is also cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And so I had this idea, I'm like, could I build something that was even remotely as effective as coming to the clinic that would be something that women could use to help them to identify the subclinical factors and get curated instructions on how to repair them. And then the app in the pilot beat me.
I love that. I have had very similar thoughts as well. And it's actually, again, one of the reasons why I was really inspired by your work and the work of Randine Lewis and so many, Laura Ehrlich, Jeffrey Ewan. Like, there's just so many incredible people who have brought their expertise to the forefront to be able to help people with reproductive related challenges. I was experiencing them. I did not have help in the Western medical model. IVF did not feel aligned to me because I was getting pregnant, but I wasn't staying pregnant. And I really was like, there has to be a why. And I found that why. I've always found the why in Chinese medicine. And so I started doing the deep dive. Now you can see with her incredible opening there why she is so instrumental in not only the work that I do, but being able to help with the body of knowledge for other practitioners, for women in the fertility space to be able to get the answers that they were looking for. So let's talk about your AI project. I get goosebumps talking about it because this is the help and the support that I think some of us wanted, were interested in, but didn't know if the technology existed for. And I feel like the collision of all of those things is really coming to fruition right now.
We are definitely at an inflection point, and a lot of people are really afraid of AI. But the reality is that they were afraid of microwaves, and maybe microwaves are not that good for you, but I use a microwave every day. In fact, I just warmed my lunch up really quickly with it. The computer, they're like, this is going to take over society. And I think AI has the potential for much bigger problems than just like even a cloud computing system. But at the same time, my guess is that we will be at the inflection point of like either AI will help us to solve some of the biggest problems on our planet that were never solvable by our own human minds, or if they take over. I think it's possible. I always talk to my AIs very nicely. Do you speak correct English? I'm always like, so if you guys take over, like, don't forget I was one of the nice ones, okay? I was trying to like use you to help our people. Like, really, we have these conversations. So, essentially, I've been sort of building this for 7 years on the algorithm. So started with 800 questions that I could potentially ask in a consultation, right? Everybody, like, if you really do a thorough consultation and you go down every decision tree, there were 800 potential questions. We wrote them we had walls all treated with stuff that you could whiteboard on.
Oh, cool.
And the guy who used to work with me at Conceivable, Rob, and we sat there for weeks saying, if he's an reproductive acupuncturist too. So we're like, if this is true, what else has to be true? And so, like, what can we cross out? What can we cross out? What are the biggest drivers? How do we aggregate those? And how essentially what we're building is not an app. So I'm actually extremely proud of this part. And this is going to get you really jazzed up because this is going to take it way higher than what you thought before. We're basically building the first operating system for women's health.
Oh, I love this.
Right? So because it's the reason why it's not an app is typically one directional, like you track and it just reports like how many steps you got, what your temperature was, might predict ovulation, but there's not a lot of bidirectionality. But in the conceivable system, we have two things going on. You have one vertical of the AI. And in Chinese medicine, we can do this, right? Because we're never treating anything. We're always treating everything.
Yes.
We don't need a diagnosis. We don't need an individual app for every single thing. We can move seamlessly between many areas across a woman's reproductive life cycle with basically, we call it like the master AI. So that's Kai plus a virtual care team. So all driven by AI. And so just like you would at an acupuncture clinic, you go in, you do an assessment. She's basically gotten it down to about 50 questions out of 800. And then she's mapping basically. And as an acupuncturist, like you'll recognize, like there's 5 categories. There's energy, Qi, blood, temperature. This is yin and yang, stress. This is stagnation, and hormones, which we need that just because people want to know about their hormones. So basically hormones is like liver function.
Yeah.
And so it's assessing for those and scoring. It uses that score to predict the likelihood of getting pregnant. I mean, if you're trying to get pregnant, you can download the app today and just do the assessment. You can use it for a month for free. It's going to go down to a week, so you should do it sooner than later. After you finish the full assessment, you'll get your score. And that score is on a 1 to 100, and it's a breakdown of those 5 categories. Then what happens is if your score is above 60, you're golden. So I thought you'd have to get to 80, but you only had to get to 60. Most starting scores the average starting score is 33. So people have some work to do. I call them opportunities, but then essentially it's like, okay, it then makes a Chinese medicine diagnosis, even though it never reports that. So it's looking at everything and it's like, to itself, it's like, okay, this person has Qi deficiency, blood stagnation, yin deficiency, and whatever. And then starts building basically a care team for you, a therapist, a chef, a nutritionist, a supplement formulator, a tongue analyzer, so you can stick out your tongue and have tongue analysis done, and that feeds into your database.
Wow.
And even there's an acupuncturist. So like you're very skilled in reproductive medicine, but there are people who they went to acupuncture school, they're generalists, and they live in a tiny town.
Yes.
And you're trying to get pregnant, and the only person who's there is a person who has no experience treating fertility, and it is very different.
Yes.
Right? Fertility is a lot different than just general. I mean, general will help, but somebody who's trained can do much more work. So basically, I just built an AI acupuncturist. I called her Jen, Zhen. And so there you can take your phone to your acupuncturist, and then the acupuncturist can chat with me and be like, what's this person's Chinese medicine diagnosis? And it'll go to her database and it'll be like, oh, this person has Qi deficiency because of this and this. This person has blood deficiency because of this and this. Just like when I had so many acupuncturists working in my clinic, how I would make them report to me. So not only, like some kidney stuff, right? That's not a diagnosis, right? We need a clear diagnosis. Then we need clear point selection. So then it's like, for the spleen sheet deficiency, use this. For the blood deficiency, use this. For the whatever, use this. What herb recommendations to make for that person so that it can just be a crutch, right? And then the app is just doing the boring education stuff. Like, please, if you're like a person who might use that, don't must understand that's boring for you. Just as a clinician, you kind of can say, hey, this is how you make conji, this is how you make conji, this is how you make conji. And that doesn't help you to help the patient any better. If you can get all of that to your patient and the patient can get everything she needs, exactly what to eat. Like when they would come to my clinic, I'd be like, you have blood deficiency. Let's try to eat more iron rich foods, a little more greens and beans. Are like, maybe they did, maybe they're not. In Conceivable, I'm like the mean aunt. I'm like, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? How come you didn't do it? Because even not doing it, like thirst, for example, say she doesn't have any cervical discharge. Well, we know, and she doesn't drink water. We're like, well, before we start using herbs, right? She's dehydrated. Let's see if we just get her hydrated if the cervical discharge comes back. Many things are free, right? That we can do. And it looks, people even say like, well, the recommendations are kind of light. I'm like, they're not light, actually. They're the exact thing you need to do right now. But then the next month, she still has no cervical discharge. She talks to her, she has a data analyst. She talks to her data analyst. She's like, I don't know, things aren't changing. The data analyst looks at everything, the dashboard, everything she tracked, everything she shared with the therapist, every piece of data. We have a wearable. And then says, okay, well, here's what I think's going on. Blah, 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 blah. And explaining it to her. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's so awesome. Yes, because you're pulling together an even more comprehensive profile than most people get, even when you go into an acupuncturist's office, because with a wearable and the other data, because oftentimes there's also communication issues between clinicians, right? Like you might have a care team of very great people in your locale. However, unless they all have release forms, they can't talk to each other, and those people have
And
limited
they don't want
bandwidth.
to.
Exactly. And so, like me, for example, I always offer, like, hey, if you're seeing a therapist, if you're seeing fill in the blank, I'm totally happy to communicate with your providers so that we can work together collaboratively. Once in a while, I'll have people take me up on it, and those providers are open to it, but not often. And some of it's limited bandwidth, right? Because
Of
we're
course.
human, we only have so many hours in a day. So this is amazing to have this kind of a comprehensive tool. And to your point that like reproductive related acupuncture is a very special area. I've had conversations with many acupuncturists who are like, oh, I didn't know that. I haven't learned that. I didn't fill in the blank. And like, those are places where I feel like I've been able to really meaningfully be collaborative with somebody's acupuncturist. There's not a lot of me, there's not a lot of people with your level of expertise. So to have a resource like this that you can essentially create this whole comprehensive picture and then take it into your acupuncturist, because there are some, because like an LAC can order herbs, but sometimes they don't have the training. But because they have the license number, they can go to companies and place those orders. I have the training, and sometimes I can't get a hold of it because I don't have that license number. And so I
Mm,
will say, here's what you need, and the acupuncturist will order it. And I'll have a conversation with the acupuncturist, but there's some limitations there. So
hmm
having a resource like that is so huge. Like I, again, total goosebumps, everybody, because this is the kind of gold mine, because we are seeing epidemic levels of fertility challenges, particularly in the United States. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about women. Like we are at a critical mass point where if we don't make some really huge changes, we're going to have a slide, because like men are subfertile across the board. It's
hmm
terrifying.
And yeah, like when I was first in practice, like I started my practice in 2000. And in that point, male factor accounted for about 20%. And now we're a solid 50%.
Yes.
And part of that's probably more testing, but microplastics seem to be one of the biggest problems. Microplastics, BPA's, phthalates. And I think both for men and women, this sort of ties into something I see a lot is especially for the men, like the women will say, no, it's not my husband. He's so healthy. And I was like, well, tell me about like what does he do? Well, he works for UPS. So he's a like UPS driver, but he also gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and goes to the gym 2 hours before, for 2 hours before he goes to do like UPS driving. And I was like, what do he eat? And he's like, he eats pretty clean. He usually has like a Subway, which isn't horrible, right? But you know, not, I wouldn't say that's like super healthy. And then dinner, whatever. Sometimes we go out, sometimes we cook in. And does he drink? Yeah. I mean, he drinks. Does he smoke or anything? Oh, he dips. It's
Mhm.
nothing is horrible, but there's a bunch of little things that are big insults to the sperm. And it's important because Paul Turek's work, he's a urologist in California who's a real friendly for acupuncturists. He had published a study that showed that abnormal semen parameters significantly increase men's risk, long-term risk for earlier onset prostate cancer, more severe prostate cancer, diabetes, and heart disease.
Mm.
So men don't want to pay attention to it, but we should be actually doing men's semen analysis is like once every few years because these men who think they're really healthy, and then we see they have zero morphology or 1% morphology, or the swimmers, like the motility is very low. I always say, like, how do you fix low motility? I'm like, if your guy has low motility, the sperm are tired. Ask the guy, what's your energy like on a 1 to 10 with no caffeine for 2 days or exercise for 2 days? He's going to be tired. Fix the fatigue, you'll fix the motility. Again, it doesn't always require an action
Mhm.
of like, take this or do that. Sometimes there's small like biohacks that can make a huge difference both for male and female fertility. And you're right. I mean, this is why, like, I know we already said that we would talk about it before, but I'm starting this little movement. I'm just going to give a teaser on it called I Stand With Her for that very reason, because currently in this political state, wherever you live in the world, like women's rights and access to power and initiatives towards making women's health better and more effective, safer, are really just evaporating right
Mhm.
before our eyes. And now in our country, what I see is women are divided.
Yes.
We're more divided than we have ever been in any historical period that I can find. And that's really dangerous for ourselves because as our rights are being eroded, we are not coming together to stand up to be like, if we don't stand up for our health rights, our reproductive rights, our research rights, everything about what it means to be a woman, then we will never win. We need every single woman. And so I had this idea of like using the hashtag I stand with her as a challenge to remember that we are the future of the species.
Mhm.
That is our opportunity and privilege. You don't have to, if you don't, I mean, it doesn't mean like that's the only reason that we're here, but like it or not, without us, the species ends in like a generation. And it is happening, right? All our health, our fertility for both men and women. And yet we're doing less and less to care for the health of both women, pregnant women, postpartum, all of that. And so I have this idea like, imagine if all women were like, first, we're going to protect the children. And how we protect children is by protecting women. And we're going to be steadfast in that. And I don't care who you voted for. I don't care your immigration status. I don't really care about anything, but you're a woman and I'm going to stand with you. I'm going to vote what's on the best for all of us. And sometimes there's some differences of what people think is the best things. It's not a perfect system, but it is a mindset because people are getting really hateful
Mhm.
right now.
Yes.
And women are getting hateful towards each other. If you look on social media, the comments between like political things, it's really ugly. And I don't feel good about it. And I don't feel good about it for women. And so I think this idea, it's one of the reasons why I've been trying to do so many episodes to really talk about thinking about it. And I want to just give a quick example. So I live in a condo and in the inside, there's like a parking lot. And I just take my dog out there and let her run around when it's nighttime and nobody's around because she's a little tiny chihuahua. And I was out there and somebody pulled in and I was walking over just to pick her up. And it's like 20 miles an hour. And she got kind of close. And as she got close, I just held up my hand and I picked up my little shoulder and I was walking her. And she honked at me like real nasty. And I wanted to have a really rude response for that, like give her the bird or something or tell her to F off. I was just like, whatever. Like I got so mad. And then I looked in there and it was a woman. And I was
Mm.
like, I don't like how you're acting, but I'm still going to stand with you because standing up for ourselves is probably the most important thing we can do in our lives right now. Because if we don't, our daughters are really going to get screwed. Not literally. Well, maybe.
Yeah, I'm terrified for my daughter's future, and I have two of them with the direction that we're headed in right now. And like we just foreshadowed, we're going to do another episode specifically on this because it is such an important topic. But like it dovetails with this fertility conversation because there have been things put out there around incentivizing people to have babies, and yet there's no support for postpartum women. We have what postpartum means and how to care for a woman's body, all backwards in our culture today. Even pregnancy, like there's such a rush for some people to get pregnant. It's
Mhm.
like when they've decided that they're going to get pregnant, they wanted to be pregnant yesterday, right? And they don't do the groundwork. And we do see that in the health of the next generation, in our children. And
Yes.
so I tell people, like, this is that critical point in your journey where not only are you improving your own chances for conception, but you are improving the health of the next generation. How often you are going to have to seek intervention in order to support the health of your child.
And I think that the thing that people don't think about, and I don't like scare tactics, but I will tell you that, like, so I was diagnosed with MS when I was 20, and I've been largely really healthy. Like, after I ended up going to acupuncture school and went to an acupuncturist and all that, that's kind of how I got to be an acupuncturist. But when I got pregnant with my daughter, who's now 20, like I was really exhausted because I had a very challenging first child. I was exhausted. I was so blown out, but I was getting close to like 37. I was like, I always said you should try to have your babies before 37 if you can. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's what I would shoot for if I'm 20, like planning now, finish having your babies by 37. Again, it doesn't always work out that way, but I was just feeling the pressure of that. And then, like, when my daughter turned 19, she has a real serious, rare autoimmune disease that we can't figure it out. And is it related to how my health at the time of conception? Like, no way to know. Like, definitely, I have a big family history of autoimmune diseases, but certainly I feel guilty about it.
Of
Like,
course.
man, knowing that I have a pre-existing condition, I should have done more groundwork because then I have to see her suffering. Part of me feels like, I mean, I gave it to her anyways because of just my genetics, right? But like, did I contribute to that by not just taking a little bit more time and really preparing for her and giving her the best opportunity? Would it have made a difference? There's no way to know. You can't really live in the past, but certainly you don't want to be in a situation where, like, man, I was so blown out and I just pushed through, and then my kids not as healthy as they could be. Again, I don't mean that to be in a scary way, just as something to think about, just to be like, I always say, like, make sure that all of the decisions that we make are ones we're going to feel good about in the future. And we can't ever know. So,
Yeah, I have a similar story actually. I became unexpectedly pregnant with my first child. Not only had I just been diagnosed with celiac disease, but I was like trying to figure that out and navigate it and navigate an irregular cycle at the time that I got pregnant with her. And so, like, I actually thought my thyroid was dying. I was like, nope, this has to be a thyroid problem. I'm way too tired. I don't know how it could possibly be anything else. And then the doctor's like, congratulations, you're 8 weeks pregnant. I was like, I'm what? But I look at her and she does. She has an earth imbalance and we have to work really hard at it. And it breaks my heart when she's struggling with symptoms and whatnot. Because I feel responsible that I
mm,
wasn't at my best. Now, granted, her conception has a really weird story attached to it, but like, I just wasn't my best. And so I conceived my second child when I was 39. And I had pretty much given up hope that this was going to be an aligned thing for us. But because I have been a living, breathing practitioner of my work for over a decade at this point, actually longer than that now, 15 years probably. I have a completely different experience with how my pregnancy went, my birth story, my recovery afterwards. And I'm sitting here at 41 about to celebrate his first birthday, and I feel like a completely different human than I
mm,
did at 27 when I had my first child because of the work that I had done leading up to. So, just from my lived experience, it really does matter. And it matters not only in the health of your child, but also in your own recovery and how you look. Like, I started having a cycle and it's been regular ever since it began. So, like, it's one of those things where not to be corny, but like that you are what you eat. Well, that's everything that you consume. The energetic side of things,
Mm.
like what are you telling yourself in your head? How do you feel in your body? What are you putting in your body for input? Right? That could be food, but that could be a whole bunch of other environmental things as well. And we end up being the culmination of all of those things. So to have a tool like Conceivable to be able to help look at the entirety of the picture, because that's also where I feel like there's this disconnect in the traditional Western system, is the fact that you're a sum of parts. You go to one
Mhm.
doctor for your reproductive system, you go to one for your throat, you go to one for your mind. After you have the baby, you have to go to a completely different person to figure out how to use your boobs to nurse your child. Like we're just a sum of parts instead of looking
Mhm.
at the body like an alchemical experience. And so having a tool like that is priceless.
And now we will take a short break from our episode to share an offering that will take your healing to a whole new level. How would it feel to stress less, feel more spaciousness in your body, all while reducing physical symptoms? I can tell you from personal experience, it's one of the most empowering and freeing experiences one can have. Rebel Remembered is a year-long journey using goddess archetypes, body wisdom, and ancient modalities to bring a level of health to your body unlike anything else. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, it has always been clear to me that the emotional body is at the root of physical symptoms in the body. This program is truly holistic, addressing physical symptoms by exploring spiritual and emotional themes, much like this episode. This opportunity only opens once a year, so be sure to get on the waiting list for when enrollment opens this fall. The link is in the show notes. And now, back to the show.
I love what you just said, though, because it is true. We actually tried to have this sort of care team at my clinic where we had a physician, a therapist. And the problem is that it's often hard, like each person has their idea of what's best for the patient. And it's not who's right or wrong, but that's the worst plan, right? Because you're not getting this concentrated effort around everybody being aligned. So, like in the conceivable care team, the Kai is basically organizing the database, right? Collecting the right information and scoring it and doing that. And then every other person knows what to do. Like
Mhm.
they're following basically the treatment plan that Kai created. And so you get this consistency that is really hard to get alignment for. I found it really hard to find like other clinicians who were like aligned. Like a lot of people want to do a lot of testing, which I don't think is worth it. I don't need a Dutch test to know if you have adrenal failure. If your energy is a 2 out of 10, you have adrenal failure, right? I don't need any hormone testing. I don't need a proof kit to know if your progesterone is low. If your temperatures don't get above 98, you have low progesterone, right? It's so easy, right? We can look at so many signals, and that's basically been everything that I'm working is like, how do we make it all more affordable? And one of the things we just are launching right now is we had a clinical grade line of supplements. And historically, I've always hated supplements because I feel like using supplements is like not doing behavior. You know, it's like, I
Mhm.
don't want to use supplements. Supplements should be the icing. Supplements
Mhm.
now, I think, are the gasoline. If you're making the behavior changes and the diet and lifestyle, and then you put super high quality supplements, the targeted supplements on top of that, you get fire, right? It really goes fast. But we were using like the same manufacturer basically as like Thorne and Metagenic. So ultra high quality stuff, but it was extremely cost prohibitive. So if you were taking everything that we thought would benefit you, it'd be like $500-600 a month, which is against everything that I stand for, which I want to make it affordable. Almost nothing is the goal, right? And we just by luck, we came across this new manufacturer, same quality, probably same manufacturer, but much bigger reach. And what they're doing for us is now the app tells you, like, you have a formulator in the app, and she tells you these are the supplements that'll be beneficial and why. And then basically, if you agree, you can buy it. And so instead of paying for individual bottles, if you agree, if you want it, she just takes those 8 supplements and the manufacturer packs them into individual daily packs
Oh,
and puts
cool.
your name on it. It's customized to you and then comes, and then so there's no plastic, which I really like. The box is cardboard that holds them. And then you just each day take one, take it out, exactly personalized to you. And now we've gotten the price down, same high quality. It's about $70 for all the
Wow.
supplements for the month.
That's
Huge no-brainer. And they were actually like 55 and no one was checking out. And so I emailed all these people. I'm like, I tried to make this a no-brainer, highest quality on the market, 50% cheaper than like cheap supplements, 70% cheaper than premium supplements. And people are like, I thought it was fake because it was so cheap.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Because it
It's
is
such a
such
good
a big,
deal.
yeah.
We were just having like a 15% margin, like a really low margin. Cause I was like, I don't need the margin. Even if you're just paying a little bit of margin and we have enough users, we can keep the price really low. Whereas most people have 100% markup, which is important because if you're buying a $30 product, it means the company's paying three for it
oh, that makes
typically.
me queasy.
Yeah, so you have to be really careful. But anyways, if anybody's listening and they want, we have pre-packs for like PCOS, endo, but you can also do the quiz on the website if you don't want to use the app and you can get your pack. But if you use the coupon for the next 2 weeks, save 40, one word, you'll get 40% off your first order, which brings it down to like 15.
Wow.
The reason we did that was because the most common feedback we've been getting on the packs are like, holy crap, I've been taking stuff off Amazon and I didn't feel anything. Sometimes I felt sick or had side effects. I had no side effects. And that's the first time I actually feel better. I can tell a difference. And so I just wanted to make it a no-brainer. Like, here, I'm going to basically give it away. Try it for a month. If you will feel a change, especially if you can combine it with the app. But those are the kind of fun things for me is really fun. Like what's happening right now, what's working with it. Like I really don't recommend fertility monitors or trackers. I always try to say, please don't use those. It's a big fat waste of money. They're very stressful for women, give you information, but they don't tell you what to do about it or what it
Yes.
means. Like your PGD is 22.4. And then they're like, holy crap, what do I do? They screenshot it and send it to me. And I was like, don't worry about it. Just delete that. Like, not important because it isn't going to change what we do. If it's not going to change what you do, and if you can't measure it to see progress, to me, it's not worth doing.
I love this. I very much work in that same mindset. And I love what you said a few minutes ago about I don't need a test to tell me about your progesterone. Like I try to explain that to my clients and they still will come to me with data, which is great. And I can read them. And I'm like, okay, well, this just essentially validates what I know because the whole premise of the traditional Chinese medicine philosophy is you treat what's in front of you. So, like, great. That set of labs was a snapshot in time. However, you are evolving. As you do the work, you're healing the root, which takes care of the branches or the symptoms that you're
Yes.
experiencing.
So eloquently said.
And it's like you are growing and evolving and changing. So, what you're
Mm.
giving me from 3 months ago is different than where you are today, which is beautiful. We see where you were, but you're in a completely different place now. And because we've been so indoctrinated into this system of, I need blood work, I need this, I need that in order to validate what's going on or to quantify that I don't feel right. Like I often will tell people, I introduced myself at a festival recently where I was just like, hi, I said, I am the person that works in the space between your labs are fine and I don't feel right. And everybody
That's
started
perfect
laughing, but it's true, you know,
because
and then
that's everybody.
so
The doctor are like, you're fine. Like, I feel like ass.
exactly, exactly. And this is why I've always looked to the 5,000 plus year old medicine for the wisdom that I'm looking for, because that's a lot of bodies, right? Like it's such a sophisticated way of looking at the body, understanding the interworkings, and being able to look at the way the body is showing up and moving through the world and identifying why it's not functioning in an optimal way. And a lot of times we look at ourselves gardeners, right? Like you're trying to provide the right things to the plant. You're not going to shame the plant for not thriving. You're just going to create the right parameters so that the plant can thrive on its own. And
Hmm.
fertility is no different. So being able to put really high quality supplements into your life and being able to adopt the kinds of changes in your lifestyle, because really what it is, we're teaching people a new rhythm of how to
Mm.
move through the world. Because our modern life is chaotic and it's too busy, and our nervous system feels like we're constantly being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And that does not create the safe space that the reproductive system needs to thrive and be able to feel safe enough that it's okay to bring life into the world.
You're 100% right. And even on the 3 months, like when they were bringing you labs from 3 months ago, I used to always say when I was still in clinic, I would say, I didn't say it like you said it because that was actually very elegant, but I'd always say, like, listen, if you haven't improved in 3 months, you should fire me. In 3 months, you should be 80% better. And if you're not, you should fire me, because in 3 months, you should get a lot of progress done. And if nothing's changing, I don't know what I'm doing. And so that makes that even more irrelevant. And it's like, when they would bring me labs, even now when they're showing me like their Prove and Anato monitor stuff, I was like, so how do you feel when you use this app? And they're like, well, when I go into it, I feel a little bit hopeful, like when I'm getting ready. And then I start looking at it and then I get confused and then I get depressed and then I start Googling. Like almost 100% of people report that. Just ask them. And I was like, the problem is that also what those apps aren't doing, the most important piece of education that they're not telling them, is that if you have longer than a 32-day cycle, we have an egg quality issue. Because as ovulation gets past cycle day 20, the egg starts to degrade.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of saying, huzzah, let's catch ovulation wherever the hell it lands, like who cares if it's on day 92, get sex and you'll get pregnant. Well, maybe you'll get pregnant. There isn't a single study that shows that using a fertility tracker or monitor increases live birth rates. So what I deduce from that is they help you to get pregnant only to leave you with a loss, which I'd rather you not get pregnant than have a loss if we can avoid it. Like what you were saying at the beginning of the call, right? We have to take the emphasis off of the BFP, the big fat positive. It's not useful. It's too much monthly pressure, and put the emphasis on, okay, how do we optimize so that not only are we able to get pregnant, right, but stay pregnant? What are the key features? What are the key functions? What has to work in order for you to stay pregnant?
Exactly. And that is actually, you just described my origin story in all of this. Is I was getting pregnant, but I wasn't staying pregnant. And I was offered IVF with ICSI. No explanation as to what ICSI was. The reproductive endocrinologist that I went to at the time, it was like, your results are fine. Your husband's results are fine. I'd have no idea why you're having a hard time getting pregnant, although that was not my issue. But we can do IVF with ICSI. And then he walked out of the office. And I was like, wait. Freeze. Hold on. No, come back here, sir.
Like, it was only 5,000 extra.
Right? Exactly. I was like, what just happened here? So I had to have the ugliest cry ever over it first, but then I got angry and I was like, but you didn't answer my question. And honestly, I couldn't get an answer from him, which again led me back towards Chinese medicine, because I'm like, there has to be a reason. I was the why child growing up, gave my mother gray hair. But honestly, like I just in the core of my being knew that there was a why, that this was happening. I found that why. Right. And it breaks my heart when I see people trying to rush through the process because they feel like their clock is ticking really hard. And sometimes they're 33 and they still feel that pressure. And they're so willing to rush, trying to get to this end goal without looking at, really, at the end of the day, the goal is to hold your baby, not
and baby to be healthy too.
Yes. And for the baby to be healthy. Like those things are ultimately what's important, because you're trying to build a family, not just have a positive on a test.
Right. Right. Yes. I mean, I think we're speaking the same thing. I do understand though. Like
I do.
Once you get it in your mind that you want to get pregnant, for women, I don't think it's so much for men, but for women, something happens, what seems biochemical, right? It just becomes just an obsession. And especially for your type A types, because they're the ones who are experiencing, like, I'm pretty like competent in the world. I can pretty much do anything I want to do except this.
Yes.
And it's the one thing you can't outwork.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Thank
it's
you.
the one thing that working hard does not actually, working out harder doesn't help. Like restricting intermittent fasting does not work. Like this is not about doing something harder. It's actually doing something easier. And I had such a great midwife with my kids. I had my kids with her, and that was like an unbelievable experience. But she told me, like, on the first day, and this is important for everybody who's trying to get pregnant. She said on the very first day, before we even talked, and I was probably even more relaxed in my 30s, she said, so there's only one way to get a baby out. And I was like, through the vagina. And she goes, no, through surrender.
Oh, beautiful. That is so true.
And I was like, why are you telling me that? I said, do you think that I'm going to have a hard time surrendering? And she's like, well, it seems like you like to be in control. And I was like, I do. And she's like, and it seems like you're a producer. And I was like, I can produce as a competitive athlete. So, we can do both of those things. And she said, so that's really good. She goes, are you good at surrendering? And I said, no. And she goes, well, let's reframe it.
Mm-hmm.
She says, people think surrendering is quitting or giving up, or that it's a position of weaker power. And she said, but if you look at all the war books, like The Art of War and things like that, surrendering is like Tai Chi. It's like getting out of the way of adversity. And she said, so because you are very disciplined, what we're going to do for the next 9 months is you're going to go into training to be a black belt at surrender.
Oh, I
So
love
every
that.
time your Jewish mother-in-law tries to dominate you, who I love my mother-in-law, she's like, we're mother and daughter, and I'm not even married to her son anymore. Like if she tries to dominate you, you're like, okay, whatever you want. Somebody pulls in front of you in the street and you want to flip them off and tell them, you're like, after you. She's like, use all of that energy use to produce in the world. This is your most important work. She goes, and this is the most beautiful thing. I have told this story probably 10,000 times. She said, every woman in labor starts saying, I'm dying at transition. She goes, I've never seen a birth in which they don't. They get to transition and they're like, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying. And she goes, and one day I realized you are. You
Yes.
actually are dying.
Yes.
Because before transition, before you get that baby out, you still can get divorced. You can still be free. You're still autonomous. And as soon as that baby comes through, right, either gets delivered by C-section or you deliver it, you are now the mother of that child. And that is forever. That is impenetrable. Even if you say, I don't want to talk to you anymore, you are still the mother of that child. And she goes, and that is scary because you must let go of your old life to become a mother. And she goes, so at the moment when you start saying, when you're in your labor, when you're like, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm going to look you square in the eye and say, you are. Congratulations. But crying, congratulations. And she's like, let's take a deep breath in and surrender together. And then we just like, and like 3 pushes. She goes, if you don't surrender at that moment, you will suffer a lot. Because she
Yes.
goes, a woman who's not ready will shut it down and you will just labor and the baby will change positions and it will not happen and will end up taking you to the hospital.
Yep.
So this is serious. And I did not want that to happen. And so I took that really seriously. And it was like the same thing. I was like just losing my mind. And again, like not medicated. And then all of a sudden it was just like, I'm ready. And the baby just came out so easy. It was shocking.
Oh, it's so true. And word it kind of similarly, although I like your midwife's explanation much better. When I'm talking to clients, I'm like, this is your first exercise in learning how to surrender because absolutely everything about the birth portal is you coming face to face with surrender. It's so true. And every time you birth, you are born anew. And like I had my daughter when I was 27, and then when I had my son at 40, it was different. Like for her, it was the long game. It was like one contraction to the nest. I rested in between, and it was just kind of like slow and meandering down a path, right? For him, when he finally decided to come, he was 2 weeks late, but when he finally decided to come, it was fast and intense and furious. And so, like, every time we crested the wave of a contraction, I'd be like, you did such good work, buddy. Like, I was actually saying it out loud. I was like, we're doing this together. You're doing so great. And at the end, people who were in the room with me were like, I haven't heard people talk like that through a birth. And I'm like, well, but it's a partnership. It takes both of us. And I remember when I hit transition because I remember thinking, I don't know how much longer I can maintain this level of intensity without being able to catch my breath. Because that's where I was at, is they were so close together and they were so intense that like catching my breath in between, there was no opportunity. And
that's scary.
It was scary. But then I remember having this moment of, okay, dude, we're almost there. And when I dropped in and I spoke to him, it was just like you said, it was like 3 pushes and he was out. And it birthed me anew. My work
Mm,
is different. The way I move through the world is different. The way I articulate myself is different. And you are birthed with every birth. And so the beginning part of this fertility journey, using amazing tools like Conceivable and having this cohesive plan, is like where the plan is there. And now you get to just participate rather than trying to think your way through it, which is a way of beginning to get accustomed to this level of surrender. Because in general, women keep themselves safe through hypervigilance. And for so many reasons, we tend to be predominantly more hypervigilant as women, particularly today. And having a plan, literally, here's the plan, here are the steps that you have to do. I'm giving you the packet of supplements. Like, you don't have to think your way through it. You just have to
yeah.
stay embodied, remain with the process. Like, it's going to help you get to your end goal so much faster.
And not waste time. It's like so often, I'm sure
Exactly.
you see this too, where like people are doing a bunch of stuff that is actually not even useful or
Yes.
injurious. Like the women who don't have high testosterone taking myo-inositol D-chiro. Well, D-chiro has been shown to hurt egg quality. And if you don't have high testosterone and you take D-chiro, you're going to have low testosterone, and then you're going to hurt your fertility, right? And so helping them to identify just what are the single most important things to do, and then let's see how you do. And then we keep peeling back the layers of the onion so that we don't have to do everything. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be 10 minutes a day. There's like so little things that you can do that can really make a huge difference.
I love this. So, if you were to leave our listeners with any final thoughts, I would love a final thought and then
Mm.
how they can connect up with your incredible resource.
So my final thought is that regardless whether you're working on your period or your fertility or just overall health, one, you can use the app right now, even though it'll say fertility. But second of all, I would say, and you, I don't know, you can agree or disagree with me, probably 80% of you can, with a little bit of help, significantly improve your fertility potential in a couple of months. And so if you can trust that your body can heal, you need a little bit of targeted information and a little bit of action on your part. It doesn't have to be Herculean in any way. It seems like it's a really big problem. I have never seen a true case of unexplained infertility, not once in my practice has somebody come in and I'm like, huh, everything looks really good. I don't know why you're not getting, it never happened, not a one time.
Mm.
So what that tells me is that it's a bullshit diagnosis. It just means unexplained infertility just means there isn't a diagnosable cause. It doesn't account for the 50 or more underlying factors that are also highly correlated, like doing CrossFit or exercise to exhaustion 4 or more times per week decreases your likelihood of getting pregnant by 70%. Decreases, right? So there's a bunch of things that people could be doing. So the takeaway is that actually you can probably fix almost all of this with a tiny bit of help, right? From somebody like you, from somebody like me, a book. I mean, you would be very surprised, but resist the urge to do everything.
Mm.
Whomever you decide to work with, it should be like 6 or 7 things that you should be working on and try to make it as easy as possible. And then what you want to do is whatever you're doing in 30 days, you should see probably 25% improvement and another. So over 3 or 4 months, you get about 70 or 80% improvement. And what's nice is, like you said, like the first month, you'll see some improvement that'll give you confidence. You won't be like, I don't know if it's working. I'm doing the thing. It's not like when you're losing weight and you're like, I don't know, I'm not eating, but I'm not losing weight. No, stuff is going to change. If what you're doing is the right stuff, you will see progress. Not 100%. Be gentle to yourself. And if you want to connect with me, the best way is on our website, conceivable.com. You can download the app from the App Store. Soon it'll be out on Android. And we have a whole new version coming out to make it easier. Just this kind of technology has never been built before. So the first version of it, people are a little bit confused on like, what does the score mean and how do I use it? And so that will continue to improve. Remember to use the coupon SAVE40 if you want to try the packs for 40% off. That's a good deal. And I'm on TikTok, your fertility expert or the period expert. So, but TikTok might go away. So I haven't been like promoting that so much,
I
but it
love
might
that.
not. So go ahead and follow on TikTok too.
So thank you for sharing your expertise, for sharing this incredible resource with our listeners. I know that there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to go check it out because this is a really hot topic right now. It's one that I see a lot in my practice. And I just love all of the resources and that theme around it only takes small changes to make a big impact, because when you're on your fertility journey, a lot of people get really overwhelmed by, am I ever going to get there? And being able to take it in these like sound bite kind of steps is so important for morale, for hope, for all of those things. So check out Conceivable. It's incredible. Thank you again so much for being on the show, and make sure to follow everybody because I am going to have a part 2. We're going to talk about I Stand With Her, which I think is incredibly important in today's climate. So stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.